forward in the spirit of a prophet in Islam. We study the ancient manuscripts, Moorish, Quran. Everything we do is halal, some haram. No, it sounds like the hook, but this is the song. When I see a brother, I greet him with salam. Want the whole truth about Hitler and Saddam. Devastated what you did in Vietnam. Out of this advantage, so they had to use bombs. It's been a few years, I read my Proverbs and Psalms. When I see my sisters, I tell them sit calm. It's your destiny, you hold it in your palm. Mr. Popularity never cared about the prom. One of life's great mysteries, young phenom. I am that I am, that's word to my mom. Moved out the rough edges, eliminate the arms. Know what you're pledging, no Uncle Tom. Coming for our territory, taking back Guam. With that old time good spell, I wave my magic wand. Now the present vibration sound is on. It's on.
Don't give it away. Yo, Mars don't give it away. Every time that I accelerate, they copy. I'm the master. Take my mother's and the father's great gift to stay. Great masterpiece for masters trying to masterpiece. This time I'm like a masterpiece. This law gon' give me the bread. Yo, Mars don't give it away. They play your life but try to take you. Can you count how many times I'll try and break you? Try to guide a great clue. Struggle size HU. Mind of my own with a great truth. I sip a little great goose while swerving on the state troops while plotting my escape of they rules, they schools, they jewels. They couldn't help my shine like chemicals. I'm at the top of my class on the pedestal. I throw that letter to that's HB number 2 and keep my name out your mouth unless it's about to spread my youth. Put to come up with the money that you run up in this chrome game. Turn up in my young guards, aim and shoot with your lame excuse. No, I never dead. This a full force sound system, level that. Yo, you only talking fiat where your level's at. This is God body, show me where the devil at. I'll let you read what this life about. We the lawmakers, architects, and still they doubt. We keep it factual with math and science practical. They love to hate the natural. Pain with the gain, no clout. A little fame couldn't stray, I remain on route. I move mountains, earthquakes on speakers. Something off the counting these occurrences, they speechless. For the world, I'm the teacher. I'm sure like the beaches, keeping everything du jour. I'm the one with the features that they envy. We the reason that they seek us to take us out every season. So, Moors don't give it away. Yo, Moors don't give it away. Every time that I accelerate, they copy. I'm the master. Take my mother's and the father's great. Give me the state. Create the masterpiece. The masses trying to masterpiece. This time I'm like the masterpiece. This law gon' get me the bread. Yo, Moors don't give it away. Yo, Moors don't give it away. Why am I in this?
Good. Good. Goddess outstanding, keeps order, she du jour. I thought Orisha Omega deity, she a more amongst the elite, but relate to the poor. She command the fleet first to step on the shore. Snooze never sleep, won't hear me snore.
Hey yo, play me once, you'll never snake me twice. Break this smoke and never save my life. Never rolling with that piece, so respect my life. Respect my life, yo. Moors don't give it away. Yo, Moors don't give it away. Every time that I accelerate, they copy. I'm the master. Take my mother's and the father's great. Give me the state. Create the masterpiece. The masses trying to masterpiece. This time I'm like a masterpiece. This law gon' get me the bread. Yo, Moors don't give it away. Yo, Moors don't give it away. Respect my life. 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 Never. Hello. ¿Cómo está? Hey. You know the PM studio, man. 7998 Premier Road. Hello. Buenas noches. Why did I go to the end of the song for real?
This is what it feels like. 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 running up to me that I don't know. Are you a prince? They ask, tell them I'm from Morocco. Look me up and down with a smile, not a frown. Turn their brain to water, watch the lower self drown. Wanna touch my antennas and steal my energy. Eyes bulge, telling them I'm always King Edward V. When it comes to facts, with most they get beggarly. They ask Morocco where? The farthest northwesterly. With every question asked, I respond cleverly. All dependents won't explain expertly. Going in their wallets, pull out pictures with feathers, breaking down the ring, then the mason confesses. He's at 33 degrees, now the convo stretches like yoga into esoteric metaphysic lessons. When my people aren't like me, he impresses. When we take Moorish science to the highways and hedges, this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like.
They tried to get you to think again. That's the profit. I'm upright, don't need a friend. And you can't stop this. I'ma write with my pen. Violate me and I'ma sentence again. Remain cautious, cause often it's in again. That's in the police out, just the silence men. When they bust through your door, you won't breathe again. Nationality will show you how to live again. It can change the predicament you're living in. You can heal the whole world without medicine. Only truth can make you a better man. Why lie? Cause you got paid to murder men. Then you try to lock them up when they riot in. That's okay, cause for freedom I'm diving in. With no knowledge, you come back to die again. Resurrect me not, cause I'd rather be one with Allah.
This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like. This is what it feels like.
Islam, Moors, honors, peace and love, love and peace. Honors to Noble Drew Ali. Honors to all the Moors in the chat. We're here for Q&A Wednesday with our special guest tonight, answering some of the questions. Brother Grand Sheikh Nature Al Bay. Islam, Moor.
Islam, family.
Islam.
Peace and love to all.
We're just gonna start up, get on the road with this. So the first question, are there any conscious Moors, or I guess any sources that you recommend for learning numerology and earth astrology, or any of the other nations astrology, whether it's Chinese or Vedic, etc.?
Islam. So, as far as there's several different sources of where you can get some good information on astrology, and the one that I came up with was the author was from Llewellyn George, and I'll see if I got a copy that I can show you in a minute. But there's several different copies. As far as the people or Moors, conscious Moors, there are a few sources out there. I know Ras Mariah has a good treatise on astrology. As far as numerology, I would refer you, if you can find some old CDs or VHS even of C. Freeman L, because C. Freeman L, he did a lot of astrology lessons. He's past form now, but he still has a lot of tapes floating around, and some Moors have taken it and putting it on YouTube. So C. Freeman L would definitely be a good choice for numerology. And as far as like I was saying, A to Z is a good astrology book, good complete textbook on astrology to give you a strong foundation of astrology. I will definitely go and you can grab that off Amazon. You can Google it and just Google A to Z. It's an astrology book A to Z, and you definitely can find that on Amazon. And that's a good source of astrology. It's not too much out there that I would recommend. Even you can grab astrology lessons from Moors to give it more of a Moorish twist to it and just deal with certain things. But to get a complete understanding, I will definitely recommend A to Z. Islam.
Islam. Give thanks for that. The next question. How did you start up the Moorish Movement Company, and any advice for any Moors trying to start a business like that?
Islam. So I was fortunate enough to have background in trucking because my family has been in trucking for about 2 generations. My father, my uncles, great uncles, etc. So it was always pretty much in my family. So as a youth growing up, my father and my family always taught entrepreneurship. They had their own businesses. My grandfather, he had his own farm, so I was fortunate enough to come from a background that had, the entrepreneur spirit within them. So even other companies that they had that I was fortunate enough to learn at an early age as a youth growing up, watching them do things. So I was always taught, even before I had these lessons from Drew Ali, I was always taught to have your own and entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So once I came into the Moorish movement, and start studying Noble Drew Ali's lessons and seeing that, and actually just being a seeker after truth, I was reading the old Moorish Guide newspapers because when I was 17, I bought my first box truck, and actually the truck was the first thing that I drove on a public street. So I had it in me. Like I said, I was 15 years old driving trucks around the yard, backing them into docks and stuff. So, I was never really interested in cars too much. But when I got into the movement, I started reading the old Moorish guides, trying to get a just understanding of what Noble Drew Ali and called for us to do. And I ran across an article called Moorish Express Furniture House. And it showed that the Moors actually had a moving company and had a furniture store in Chicago back in the 1920s. So being that I was already doing trucking, I had named the trucking company that I started, well, me and my father had together at the time, was L Express. And that was just me getting up age and partnering up with him to, just to pretty much do the family thing. But then once I came into that understanding of nationalizing and bringing everything under the Moorish umbrella, I actually changed it to Moorish Express. Actually, before it even changed to Moorish Express, Sheikah Nika, my wife, and I, we had changed it to Great Seal Trucking. Because that was the first entry level to the Moorish Divine and National Movement that we came and met on degrees together. So we were heavily involved in Great Seal, National Association of Moorish Affairs during that time, early 2000. And so we named the company Great Seal Trucking. And then again, after a couple years later of just learning more information, I ran across the article Moorish Express out of the Moorish Guide newspaper, put out by Prophet Noble Drew Ali and the Moorish Guide publication company. So then I was like, well, listen, this is right on point. This is, we were already doing this, and come to find out, the Moors was already involved and was doing this. So we tried to figure out if any Moors were still doing it or using that name, and we couldn't find that nothing. Even in Chicago, we checked the public record and things. Um, so we wound up just changing the name to Moorish Express and running with that. And here we are. But as far as other Moors, there are several Moors out there who have trucking companies as well, and put the Moorish name to it. And I've been teaching for years that we should create a business enterprise, because that's what the Prophet and them were doing with several businesses that they had. So there's different Moorish American trucking, Moorish trucking. You got different Moors that's doing things, and you got Moors that's running trucking companies under other names that are proclaimed Moors out there. So positively to all the Moors out there that's coming from any entrepreneur perspective, but especially those that's in the transportation, because that's one of our ancient modes of commerce, is transportation. Before it even got to the roads, highways, we was transporting goods up and down the seaboards. They said Moors was navigators, so we navigated the seven seas. So what were we doing? We was doing trade and commerce. So transportation and transportation is in our blood, is in our DNA as Moorish Americans, modern day on this side, and ancient back to our descent, is in us, is in our blood. And we were merchants, we were tradesmen, and we just pretty much just modernizing that aspect of things and just dealing with things, in the trucks. We were demonstrating camels, horses, all of that. So it's easy for us to do these things. So what we were just lacking is the knowledge, the courage, and the resources to do these things. So we're here for anyone who wants to get a blueprint on how to do that, how to start up a LLC, and get rolling, even getting grants. It's a lot of things that can be done, but the main thing is, once we really unify properly like we should, we can really do it on a bigger scale from a business enterprise perspective, and not be so divided with our trucking companies. You see a lot of nationalities are getting into trucking, like you see the Hindus, so-called Indians. They out there. They on the corridors. They driving. They got their turbans on and they looking good. And I just be thinking, like, the Moors definitely need to step it up, because that's our industry. And another good thing about it is, especially when there's emergency disasters and things that occur out there, like what happened during COVID. They give us a lot of leeway for being on the public roads when they have the state of emergency and they lockdowns, and they say they don't want no conveyances or vehicles on the road. Those who are in the trucking business, regardless if you working during that time period or not, you have the right of way to be on the road. So just for emergency exits and whatever, more is definitely on the trucks, containers, and warehouses. Those are the Prophet's lessons. Islam.
It's a lot more. And the secondary part of that question is starting up a business like that, or we could even put it to just starting up a business, as far as more as how to go about, how or should they go about doing that.
Islam. So everything starts with a thought, right? So, whatever you think and whatever your plans is, start putting it on paper. So one thing you want to do for any business is you want to write a business proposal. And even if you don't have the knowledge to do so, you have freelancers out there that can help you with that. and they work for cheap. They usually in another country, but they have all sorts of social media pages and cash apps and things where you can just pay them just to write a write an affidavit, write a proposal. Uh, they got knowledge in every industry, and a lot of them learn the English dialect so that they can communicate with people on this side, because this is where all the business is at for them. So putting a business proposal is paramount, and that'll help you for the grant perspective too. To get a grant for the business, you're going to need to show the bank a business proposal. But just far as getting it started, when you think of a name, and then what you want to do is go to your state registry, Department of Treasury, for whatever state you domicile in, and then you check the registry to make sure that that name has not already been taken or being used by a company. Because if that name that you like or choose is already taken, then you can't start that you can't use that name in that particular state jurisdiction. You still can use it if you want to start it up in another state, but not exactly the wording. You might have to change it up a little bit if you're trying to use a name similar to that within the same state. That's why it says even, the word Moorish is popular. So you're going to see a lot of Moorish businesses. So especially if you're trying to put the word Moorish in front of it, you're going to have to switch it up because a lot of names is already taken. So for example, we got two names. We got Moorish Trucking, which is the mother or parent corporation is called. Moorish Trucking Ministry is actually the actual wording. But then we got DBA as Moorish Express, moving and delivery. So those two names are taken. So if you're in New Jersey and you're trying to use a name similar to that, you just have to change it up a little bit to make it distinct and have different identification numbers. But after you choose the name, when you go on the website and they tell you, all right, that name is not taken, you can use it or whatever, then you can proceed to the next level and you have a choice. You can go to the county recorder's office / register of deeds office, same places where we file public documents, same place the deeds are filed, instrument numbers, etc. You can do a trade name in the county clerk's office. So it's called filing a trade name. So you just choose the type of business, the business description. There is a filing fee, and it's going to differ between states. But usually most of them are under $100 to my knowledge. But even if you don't have everything like equipment and stuff put in place, you still can put the name. The first thing you want to do is get the name down. That way, even if you don't have all the details yet, the proposals, anything, you just got an idea. Put that idea to use. File a trade name. You can do a LLC, and file a trade name in the county. That way, can't nobody take the name. Even if you don't do anything with it right away, you still good. At least once you get ready to do it, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the line, at least that name is already in place. That's on a lower level for starters. The other option is you go to the Department of Treasury, which is the State Department jurisdiction. So there's two different jurisdictions you do it. The trade name is in the county. Then the Department of Treasury is with the state. So the Secretary of State's department, and the name will differ according to jurisdictions as well. But you can do the same thing on a state level. You do a name search, you file a name with the Department of Treasury on a state level. Either or suffice. When you do it through either way, the next thing, once it's filed, you pay your filing fees. Then the next thing they're going to ask you is, do you want an EIN number or a tax ID number, which comes hand in hand with it. And remember, this is a corporation, it's a business, so there's no issues with It's just how you file documents and the paperwork and the wording, the language of the documents that you file. We'll get into different legalities and jurisdiction later, but just showing you from a ground floor perspective, what you do is you file for a tax ID number or EIN number. Some people do a sole proprietor. Um, Even if you're an owner operator, is just you and nobody else, you the only person, that's called owner operator or sole proprietor. And a lot of the people use their social security numbers for that, but I don't suggest that, because you want to separate yourself from the business and set up a corporation or a business or a trust separate from you. And that's for liability purposes and things of that nature. But again, that would be more down the line. But just for starters, you can just set it up as a basic trust or LLC, get a tax ID number, and then that business is on paper and registered. You get a tax ID number. You can still go down to a local bank and get a bank account, a savings or checkings account for that particular company or corporation you just set up. So there's several different types of companies or corporations. And again, according to how many people, as far as owners, incorporators, shares, depending on what you're doing, determines the type of corporation that you file. So again, and that can also be changed later, but you don't want to start off with like a C corp and things of that nature, because that's usually dealing with multiple people that's incorporating. Then you're required to have call meetings and have shares and stock certificates and stuff like that when you're trying to go on that level. So that's when you want to seek more legal advice if you're really trying to do it on that level. But even if you start off with an LLC, you can always upgrade that or change the formation at another time. But like I said, just to secure the name and get it on paper, then you definitely can do it the way that I just explained. And that also will benefit more is because they got, like I said, these grants out there and startup money for small businesses, new businesses, and back during COVID, a lot of people was filing for those PPP loans, and a lot of people were starting up businesses back then, but they didn't have the really knowledge on how to do it. And a lot of them was doing it wrong. People were setting up businesses overnight and then filing for a PPP, and a lot of people, got caught in some legal issues because they didn't really have anything, no substance to back it. They didn't really have any employees. They didn't have nothing on paper that shows that they was running a business, that they was exercising activity in that business name and selling goods, having clients or whatever. They was just filing for these things because it's there. They was just trying to take advantage of it and filing for it. But later, and a lot of them got paid. They got money up front. But it's when they came back and investigated a lot of those businesses, that's when people started to get pulled into court over that, when they realized that they didn't have no activity for those. So what I suggest is starting up a business, regardless if you don't really, even if you got a job, right, working for somebody, you still can file for a business name and still use your business as a part-time hustle until you get enough clientele to get from underneath the job that you want. So a lot of people's fear is they don't want to start a business because they feel like it's not going to sustain them right away, and they don't have enough cash flow, so to speak, fiat to sustain them. So they kind of stay stuck at the job that they at and never really get the business off the ground. So what you want to do is if you got a job, then keep that job for a minute until you get everything in place and start advertising, marketing your business, and start to do it on the side until it catch up to itself. If you currently don't have a job at all, then now there's a perfect opportunity. You ain't got no choice. Just, set up your business and roll with it. Don't be afraid, because that's where most businesses fail. It's either the fear to do it, or the lack of support from your people. And Moors definitely should be supporting their own, because that's part of our nation building. That's part of our community. That's part of our lessons. That's our obligation to help each other. So once more start networking properly, we should be able to at least be your first clients, no matter what it is. Islam.
Islam more. The next question, why do some Moors teach that women can't wear the fez?
Well, for starters, we are Moorish Americans because we are descendants of Moroccans. Well, we were born in America, right? Or what is now called America. So with that being said, the Prophet created a culture for us here. He created a community, a society, which is also a government. But he created a culture for us here in America based off our descent, which is Moroccan, Moorish, etc. But we are living here, doing business, domiciling here in America. So we have an ancient, we have a current or a modern day society that we still have to live and do business in. So based off that, he told us that the women were to wear the turbans and the males will wear the fezzes, as establishing our attire or our dress code here in America. So those were his instructions. You will see some women do wear the fez, here, but that just wasn't his instructions. There's a lot of different headdresses that we also wore in Amexem, which is now called Africa, and even in Hindustan and in India and different parts of the world, we wore different headdresses, and women wore fezzes and different headdresses, but those were different eras of time, and they represented a different mission, I would say. And what I mean by that is because even the fez in some countries, certain nation states have a different meaning to it. So according to the culture and the history behind it and what that the community is taught, they will view the headdress as a different mission. So not to cause any confusion to America and the American society, he established a dress code for us here, and we were to exercise and demonstrate his instructions so it would be known and recognized by certain things here, and not to cause too much confusion with what other people in different parts of the world might be wearing, what they're doing, and what type of current that they come in with. Even the color of the fez have different meanings. So again, according to where they're at in the world, people have different colors, different types of headdresses, different sizes of the fezzes, and even different style turbans, depending on what modern day agreement and what type of group and community that they're trying to exercise. So that's very important to understand. Although it's all our birthright, it's all a part of our headdress, but our national headdress, which means our nation's headdress here in America, is traditionally a red fez and a red turban. However, his writing did say that women can wear whatever color turban that they want, but men traditionally should wear the red fez, and he did anoint certain individuals with a black fez, according to, and I'm speaking about Noble Drew Ali, at the time of Noble Drew Ali, when he was informed And our current our leader at the time, he did put black fezzes on certain individuals that he felt achieved a certain degree or knowledge in law or Moorish accomplishments. He would anoint those individuals with black fezzes as he seemed fit. As the generations went on, Moors just started, according to their leadership, started adopting different things, different customs within our current Moorish American society. And so a lot of people do whatever they see done or is taught to them by their leadership. But I'm giving you the words and the instructions of Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Islam.
Islam. And just to go back, someone had asked, what are some downsides or cons to setting up an LLC as a Moorish American?
What are the pros and cons of setting up an LLC as a Moorish American?
No, the downsides of it.
Oh, the downsides.
What's the downsides?
All right, well, Islam, and I'm glad that you brought me back to that as well, because that's a whole treatise of instructions within itself. So it definitely will call upon another segment or meeting to deal with maybe this topic alone. But,
yeah, the instruction part. Yeah, I get it.
But just to give that individual another perspective of it, there's pros and cons to everything. But just for me to be clear about setting up something under the name Moorish, I suggest that before you set the name up, well, you can choose any name. You can set up Moorish auto mechanic, just throwing that out there, right? If you're a mechanic. And although you can choose that name, but you don't want to do that and you haven't proclaimed your nationality. There's no lawmakers or anybody or no legislation that's going to penalize you for it. There's no charge against it. But just to be in harmony with the nation, any business enterprise, the individual themselves should be proclaimed first to be entitled to using the name Moorish. Although Moorish, again, is our ancient name, it's the name of our nation, and it's your birthright to declare and to be Moorish. But just to be in harmony with Act 6 of the Divine Constitution, you should proclaim your nationality first. And I have to speak about the pro and the con about that, because if remember, a corporation is de facto by itself. It's a corporation. It has no life to it. So it can't function on its own. So a natural person has to create the corporation or the company. All right, because a company or corporation is an artificial entity. An artificial entity can't create itself. So this goes back to one of the reasons why proclaiming your nationality is necessary, because we was branded Negro, blacks, and colors, right? And not only those names was names to delude to slavery, but the individual names that we were born with most likely was an artifice, or that was an artificial creation of law itself, because your parents gave you the name, right? Most likely they were wards of the state. So they gave you a plantational name or European family name, which was what we call a surname, which is the last name. All right. So that name represents wardship when we as melanated descendant of Moors use those names. It's a code and it signals wardship. It signals that we are an artificial creation of law. So technically those names, which we call straw man names that's on that birth certificate, those are corporations within themselves. They are artificial entities. They don't represent natural people. So it's a corporation within itself. So remember, I says an artificial creation can't create itself. So this is getting more deeper into what those names represents. But the downside of that is if you setting up a business under an artifice or an artificial creation itself, as far as the European family names, then what occurs is that you don't really have too much protections at law if they ever want to challenge you on anything pertaining to your corporation, as far as you even defending your corporation against anything, because you yourself is still considered a ward of the state or artificial entity. So therefore, you can't speak on behalf of your corporation. You have to hire an attorney, because attorneys, the way they say it is a corporation can't represent itself. So a corporation has to be represented by an attorney, which is a bar member of the bar association, what some people call lawyers, but they're attorneys at law. So only an attorney at law can actually speak or represent a corporation in court. That's another flag and clue on what occurs when they summons us to citations, tickets, or whatever, and we have to go to court. You know, they say that you can come and represent yourself, but technically it's fraud, because those names are corporations and you can't really represent a corporation unless you're an attorney. This is one of the reasons why they say you must be represented by an attorney. However, they will give you a pass and let you go what they call pro se, which still admits to jurisdiction of wardship. So we don't do pro se. When you see Moors go to court, they always go make a special visitation in propria persona, or juris. That means in one's own proper person, because you're saying I'm a national and I'm a natural person, and I'm not coming to the court as a corporation. I'm coming to the court as a natural person, making a special appearance on behalf of a corporation, whatever corporation you're representing. So that's one of the downsides of just not being in your proper person, period. But once you proclaim your nationality, then anything you do should be, under your Moorish umbrella, because that's where your constitutional protections come from. It comes from being in your national name and connected to your Constitution of the Divine Constitution and the Constitution of the Free National Republic of the United States. So once you considered a natural person, through proclaiming it, then you have the knowledge, because that means you would have studied, you would have been put on record to this declaration already. So now when you set up your company or corporation or your LLC, then you would go down as the owner, president, chairperson, whatever title you're going to hold in this company, but your Moorish appellation will be on that document controlling the corporation, even if it's a trust. Because a lot of people are getting trust savvy, but a lot of people are setting up trust also in wardship names when they have not proclaimed their nationality properly. So although they might put some assets and things inside of a trust to give the trust protection, but again, they considering themselves as the trustee, and they're not really improper person. So again, if they ever have to go to court to defend the trust, then they're going to be walking into a courtroom under wardship status, and therefore have no constitutional protections that anybody's going to want to respect. And then they got to fight their way out of it from a corporate statutory perspective, when they really need to be protecting their assets under the constitutional protections and common law and other acts of Moorish codes of conducts that we might use to defend ourselves with. But you have no due process if you coming to any court, because it doesn't matter. Individuals go to courts to settle their disputes, And corporations also have to go to court to settle their disputes. But somebody has to go to court to represent these corporations or speak on behalf of these corporations. So it's either going to be the attorney that works for them, their first obligation is to the court, or it's going to be a natural person to represent the corporation or the trust. So again, Moors don't be setting up corporations or trusts under corporate warships names, because it'll give you some protection, but it's not going to give you exclusive protections and due process. It's really like putting the cart before the horse. You know, the first thing you should be doing is proclaiming your nationality the right way, so that you can have the defense and the due process behind you to do anything that you endeavor in life. Islam?
Islam, that leads right into the other question. Good work answering some of these questions too, Islam. The next question is, why do some Moors teach you have to come through the temple in order to be a Moor? And is there a difference between calling yourself a Moor or a Moorish American?
Well, yes, because a Moor is not jurisdictional specific. And when I say jurisdictional specific, meaning that you have Moors all over the world. So a Moor, just saying that a person is a Moor is just connecting back to the descent, but it's not constitutional specific. Just saying that you're a Moor status-wise is not connecting you to any specific land or constitutional society that's operating any geographical boundaries in any particular land. So there's no constitution that can come to your defense when you just say, I'm a Moor, without stating what landmass and what constitutional society that you are connected to. That's why our national name is, our free national name is Moorish American, because the American is a designation, just like Moorish is. Moorish is our descent. American is our modern day constitutional society designation. So it ties us to the geographical boundaries of the United States of America's jurisdictional geographical boundaries. So that ties us into the Constitution that was proclaimed and declared and adopted according with other laws that connected us to whoever or whatever nation states that's in union with the United States of America. This is why the preamble says, in order to form a more perfect union. So a union means a compilation of different nations or nation states. So that constitutes an agreement. So certain states, certain societies, certain constitutional individuals, or what you would call citizens, or also termed members, agree to come a part of a constitutional jural society. So that is what you call members or citizens of the United States of America. So I know that's going to lead into another question, but I'm just giving you the groundworks on the difference between just saying that you're Moor and connecting yourself to the constitutional nation state called Moorish American. Now, with that being said, back to the first question, Prophet Noble Drew Ali declared our nation in 1928 officially. So in 1928, Moorish American became an official declared nation. And he put a constitution together with also the consent of several other sheikhs at that time. And he established the grand body and things of that nature to constitute what it takes to satisfy a nation within a nation. So our nation was Moorish American, which became our domestic nation, our jural society for the Moors that's operating here in America on this soil. But we are to function as being part and parcel to the Free National Republic of the United States of America, which constitutes a compilation of several different states who agreed to come together to form a more perfect union. So together we entered the union that was already functioning at that time, based off the fact that we were under Reconstruction and that we were once operating on this land under our free national name of Moroccan, or the Moroccan Empire at one time, which was deconstructed or denationalized in the year 1774. So because we were once functioning here, gives us a birthright to function here again, because we were the original occupants, natives, members that once held membership or citizenship on this soil here before the Europeans colonized this particular land. So therefore, you have Moors all over the world, right? And according to whatever nation, state, or geographical territory they're in, their constitutional name will be different. So just saying that we're Moor would not connect us to the divine constitution and bylaws here in America and the United States Constitution here, because we became part and parcel to it. So it becomes one, as the way the prophet entered us into these families and nations of here. So because the Constitution, the Moorish Science Temple of America was set up, declared, filings was put on the record, and the prophet went around to different legislation meetings and even international meetings, as far as the League of Nations at that time, which is now referred to as the United Nations. So he went to different platforms where leaders come to and declared us a nation and explained to them who we were, who we are, and how are we going to be doing business in the continuation from 1928 even to this day. So the prophet set up the Moorish Science Temple of America, which became known as the Organization of the Nation. So that is the organization of the Moorish American nation. So you ask the question, why do we have to come through the Moorish Science Temple? Is because that's how the prophet declared it, and that's how he set it up. That is the organization of the nation. So although there's Moors that have set up different organizations since the prophet passing, they said, there's a lot of different Moorish organizations and temples and organizations that's not even referred to as Moorish Science temples, just different Moorish organizations, period, and auxiliaries. And they are creating documents and creating governmental societies under their own leadership to the best of their knowledge. But that's not what Prophet Noble Drew Ali set up. So that's not what the international family, as far as the League of Nations and the different leaders, that's not what they recognize when it comes to Moorish American. So although they're setting up different tribal governments within the nation and declaring people nationals and giving them nationality cards, it's just not known and recognized on an international scale, because Prophet Noble Drew Ali was the only one that have done that and was successful of doing that. And the Moorish Science Temple has been around for over 100 years now, and that's what's more recognized on an international stage and definitely on a domestic stage here in the United States of America. Any other group that has been set up after the fact has to establish themselves. So they will have to do what Noble Drew Ali done to do it correctly. So you're risking whether who done it the right way, the modern day groups or Noble Drew Ali. So hopefully that answers your question, Islam.
Islam. How are you looking for time?
Oh, we can keep rolling for a minute.
All right. Someone in the chat asked, what do you say Moors should put on certain applications for grants or other applications when it comes to status?
Nationality. And the reason why I say that is because they always ask you on any application, regardless if it's grants or whatever. You got two different types of applications. One is always, if you're applying for something, then that means somebody else created the form or the application, either a corporation, organization, or an individual, right? So they're going to set the criteria or the language of that form or affidavit in a way that best suits them and what their mission is, right? So the programming and the default for documentation, applications, and forms, they're always going to put the word race down there on their form. They're always going to put citizenship or ethnic group and things of that nature, which is all convoluted. And if it's their form, they're going to be putting it there again to best suit them. So when you have the physical form, you got the physical form, and then you have now a lot of stuff is online. Everything is being reduced to online forms only. So now, and that makes it a little bit more complicated. If it's a physical form, then you can always write a line through the word race, because race is a fiction. So we don't really like using the term race, ethnic group. So we always cross these things out. And, if you're forced to put a race, like if you're doing it online and you can't cross it out, you put human race if you can. It might reject it, but if you can, that's the first default that we should do, because there's truly only one race, and that's the human race. But the second best choice will be the Asiatic race, which still becomes difficult because they have switched the term Asiatic to the word Asian. So you have a choice then too. I mean, some people will just put other, some people will mark Asian. If you do put Asian, you're leaving it up to them to define what Asian is and are you really Asian or not. It's really not going to make too much a difference, because it's not like you can be charged for checking off Asian or other. It's just coming down to whatever you can defend in the end. But like I said, one of the arguments is that you didn't give me a no choice. My correct designation or nationality wasn't in the multiple choice. So I checked the closest thing to me, which is Asian. I don't refer to myself as Asian because modern day Asians are not, the same of what we go by. But that's the closest to the other multiple choices that you have there. Or you could just put other, and if they question you later, then you give them that same explanation. And when it's on the physical form, is a little bit easier because you can just check it off, put a line through it, and then just write the word nationality there, and then put Moorish American. So that's what we usually do on Social Security applications. Anything dealing with jobs, DMV, wherever you go where they still honor the physical forms, you want to definitely edit it and make sure that it has your correct status on it before you submit it, because that's what creates I don't want to say the jurisdiction, but that's where they're going to get their assumed jurisdiction from. Is from the language that you either agree to or don't agree. Because even if you leave something blank, right, they're going to assume the jurisdiction anyway, because then that comes under what they call acquiescence, which means that you technically didn't answer or you didn't say anything. So if they say you a horse, and you didn't challenge it and say, no, I'm not a horse, then within their application in the contract that you agreed with them, by not saying anything at all, you agreed to be a horse through what they call acquiescence, because you didn't challenge it. And that's technically what they've been assuming jurisdiction over us the whole time, even with Negro, Black, and Colored, because they know we're not Negro, Black, and Colored. But the fact that we're not challenging it the way we're supposed to, the contract stipulates that we're Negro, Black, and Colored. They're assuming that we are, because they're saying that they got an agreement that we are because we didn't challenge it. Because remember, laws are based off contracts. It's based off agreement. So that's where they get their assumed jurisdiction from, is from contract law. So that's why we must proclaim the nationality and declare it officially, not just by saying that I'm Moorish American or saying I know my history, I'm a Moor. That's not good enough. You have to proclaim it, which means to declare it officially according to some type of governmental procedure. It's a procedure to proclaim your nationality. That's exactly what proclaim means. So the prophet spoke law. He chose his words diplomatically when he wrote, because just raising your hand saying Islam, I'm a Moor, I know my roots, that's not proclaiming your nationality. Or just downloading something online and putting it in your pocket and showing it to an official, that's not proclaiming your nationality either. And this, see, a lot of Moors get jammed up because they don't really understand the process of proclaiming their nationality. They speak about it from an abstract perspective, and it's not their fault, because a lot of people who are teaching Moorish law and history fail to really give them the accuracy behind proclaiming nationality, because the Moorish Science Temple really has original and general jurisdiction over the subject matter of nationality for a Moorish American, that is. And that's really not explained because of the culture of the Moorish Science Temple over the past few generations. They wasn't really dealing with law. They wasn't really proclaiming their nationality themselves correctly. So a lot of the elders pretty much just assumed the name El Abay as their surname, and they never really proclaimed it according to a governmental procedure. So they rolled with the statement that Noble Drew Ali said, let old business stay where it is and do everything in your new name. And so a lot of elders, they interpreted that as, well, we don't need to go and correct or change anything. We can just start signing our name El Abay and just using it for whatever new business that we do. So a lot of them rolled with that and never really declared it or proclaimed it officially, which the con or the downside to that is the system, right? I'm calling it a system because it's a machine, it's a corporation, it's a beast. But whether if it's the DMV records, Social Security records, the Census Bureau records, you're on file at the Department of Justice, IRS, or wherever corporation that has a database, if they have you in there under an assumed name that you were born with, that name will always stay in those records unless the person physically dies and they create what they call a death certificate. Then they will update that file to saying that that individual was still a wardship, right, in the system. That individual has become deceased. And this is the death certificate to explain or to show that that person is no longer in the flesh, right? What really is a corporation comes to at the end of the account of a corporation is really what they're doing. but that's a whole nother level. But it's terminating a corporate account. It's called a dissolution of a corporate account. No different if you have a corporation and you want to dissolve it. You say, well, you know what? I'm either going bankrupt or I'm dissolving this business. You have to do documents to dissolve the business, or else the business would just stay on record. And they would still expect for you to do filings, pay taxes, or whatever else if you don't dissolve it and show that that corporation have came to an end. So it's the same thing with the corporate names or the Christian names that we were born with. If you don't put anything, challenge in their records, then it remains as the individual is still out there doing business. So you have to go to each record and dissolve it or correct it. So we're not dissolving it, we're correcting it, which dissolves it. Because we're proclaiming our nationality and saying we're returning those names, those X-rail names, back to the colonial possessors that created it. Those are not our names. So we're telling them, we're giving them truth and fact behind why we're dissolving it. We're not saying that we're dying or anything like that. We're saying that we're dissolving it for reasons. And we're proclaiming our nationality because those names were misnomers. They're not proper names that best explains or reflects who I am as a natural person or my descent. It's not tied to any nationality because they have our citizenship down as U.S. citizen. They have our race down as black. So once we agree to those two things on paper, we're agreeing to be an artificial entity. So there is no due process. There's no defense, no constitutional defense pertaining to those names. There's discretionary due process, which comes under the 14th Amendment, so-called 14th Amendment of the Constitution, which means that a person can go into a courtroom under the status of Negro or black, or anything, or even wardship, and they will participate with the individual, and they will say that they're going to guarantee you due process or constitutional protections. But at that point, what they're making reference to is the only due process that they're claiming to give you is only guaranteed under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. So what that really means, and this is very important, what that really means is that the 14th Amendment is the beginning or the foundation of your constitutional protections, which means that they're not honoring any law prior to when the 14th Amendment was created. They're saying that you're only a citizen in their eyes because the 14th Amendment allowed you to be a citizen. They're saying that you only have constitutional rights, protected rights, because the 14th Amendment said that you now have protection of law or constitutional rights. They're only saying that you can do business with the United States. You can set up a corporation with the United States. You could set up a trust, or you could do anything, or you can own so-called fiat or money because the 14th Amendment said you can. They're also saying that you can only cast a ballot, which means that you can only vote because the 14th Amendment said that you can only vote. So that's when, again, you have to go back to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's lessons and instructions, and told us that we are not to participate, we are not to use, and we're not to agree or acquiesce to anything that was created by way of that 14th Amendment. So that's really, again, back to the whole understanding of us proclaiming our nationality from a legal and a lawful perspective. Outside of our creed, outside of our religious rights and immunities, that's Noble Drew Ali from a lawful perspective, where a lot of people have missed that because it has not been taught properly, or they have not connected Noble Drew Ali to that awareness. A lot of people are teaching law and teaching things that should be done in law, but they're not showing the connection of Noble Drew Ali lessons and instructions behind the law. Remember, he said that this government won't recognize us without him being at the head. Those were his words. And he said we only can receive our divine rights unmolested by being connected to the Moorish divine and national movement. And when you go into that, understanding the law, we know that there's a constitution that has to be set up to do that. And the only constitution that Noble Drew Ali ever wrote, or under his administration, that was ever declared, was the divine constitution and bylaws. That's the constitution for the nation of Moorish America. Anything else only pertains to that organization of whoever created it. Islam?
Islam. How's your time looking?
Islam, couple more questions.
All right. There's one in the chat. Let me see if I find it.
So Islam, more while you looking for that other question, I'm gonna just keep rolling on that same.
Yeah, I got it right here.
All right, I just want to say another thing in lieu of that corporation, though. Mm-hmm. So I hope that was clear. But also, when you set up these LLCs or corporations, beware that again they're allowing or saying that you have privilege to do that, but that corporation also will be adjudicated or decided upon based off the 14th Amendment. So when we have the opportunity, you can put an affidavit of fact, whatever writs or affidavits that you can use, because when you file your corporations, you can put any document you want in with those filings on the public record. So you always want to put a disclaimer there of who you are as the owner, who owns the corporation, who owns the trust or whatever. In a trust, it would be called a trust agreement. But even if it's just a LLC for what they would call a for-profit corporations, because some corporations are for-profit, some corporations are non-for-profit. But depending, regardless of what it is, you want to put an affidavit of fact or something, a declaration of status, declaration of nationality. You want to put something there as a cover page to whatever corporation that you filing, to show them that anything that you do or set up should not be construed with that 14th Amendment or any statutory procedures thereof. That way, if somebody sued a corporation or you ever have to come to court to defend that corporation, the natural person is coming there to defend that, and you can bring your constitutional laws, you bring your acts of Congress, you bring your whatever laws, de jure laws that you want into the argument, where they don't be trying to put it under statutory proceedings, because the corporations, they're going to try to hold you under the statutes that deals with corporations or UCC codes, because that's what UCC codes are actually for, Uniform Commercial Codes. So commercial codes are for commercial transactions. So they don't use constitutional laws to dispute arguments between two corporations. They will start using contract laws and codes. Those was where the UCC codes come in at. So you want to look up certain UCC codes that might pertain to the subject matter of what you're doing, and make sure you put that in your writs or your affidavits when you set up your corporations, because some UCC codes will tie you back into the common law establishment. That's why we use UCC code 1-103 to give you that's the connection to whatever you're doing on a corporate level, to give you the constitutional protection to bring the common law into the argument if you have to dispute between the corporation and on the natural side. Islam?
Islam more. Is there a history of the Moabite bloodline without biblical reference?
So it is, but let me explain why I say that and why I say this. The Bible is the sun book. Helios, it's the sun book, right? So the Bible really explains everything under the sun, right? It's not nationality specific. And the language of the Bible is retranslated in many different dialects and languages, right? Don't lose the connection or the faith to even use the Bible in lieu of Moorish history. So the Bible doesn't come right out and say, yeah, the Moors or the Moorish or the Moroccans, but the Bible speaks about the Moors through many different names, dealing with either what time zone, what time they were, the time that they were in, what land they were in. This is why the prophet connected us to the Bible through and showing us that the Moorish are, again, descendants of the Moroccans, but the Moroccans are descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. So the Canaanites are in the Bible. But also there's other names that we our brethren, the Amorites, the Hittites, we all in the Bible under different names. So you need that to hold them, the current day legislation, the courts, the judges, the Templars, Masons, whoever they are, they all know the history and the story of the Bible. So we as Moors, the prophet taught us to study the Bible so that we can decipher the codes, crack the codes, and pull our true lineage out of it, because that is the current day history book, especially of the courtroom. That's the book of the courtroom. So we want to know it. We don't have to necessarily put our faith or love into it or connect to it from that level, but we definitely need to study it and know it, because there's going to come a time where you need to know it, and not just for your defense, but also most of the Americans, so-called Americans, right, and the descendants of the Asiatics, which is under the term Negro, Black, and Colored, most of our people are under Christian influence. So that's still the most dominant and popular writings or book of faith that our people are under. So in order to teach them and to show them a need to even proclaim their nationality, 9 times out of 10, you have to convince them by deciphering and showing them the Bible, the truth of the Bible. And until we really understand that and do it on a massive collective scale, we're still going to be really, just a hit and miss with this. This is why the prophet gave us a holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and gave us, language in there that alluded to Jesus and words that might be familiar with Christianity. Although that all of the characters and the wording and the chapters and the scriptures that's in the Holy Quran or the present day Bible all predates Christianity. So by no way is the Bible associated with Christianity from its true origin. It's just we were taught that it began with Christianity. Therefore, we give the authorship, the originators, to Christianity. So therefore, we disconnect and we rebel from it, and then we don't want to teach it or we don't want to talk about it because we think that it don't pertain to us. So I just want to say that as a disclaimer, because we got to get fluent with that to be able to use it. There's a lot of coding within it. You can declare your nationality and just stand on the Bible by itself if you really understand it. And you probably have more success because it predates the modern day law books. Everything that they're drawing from in court, it predates that. So that's one level. As far as other history and books, there's plenty of records that they buried and resurfaced and retranslated and tampered with that, also pertaining to our history as Moors and Moorish Americans. This is why, again, the prophet put our literature together to give us a foundation, and it gives us a modern day American English dialect, or a modern day English dialect version of our ancient history. So it's all there, but it does connect us back to ancient scripts and ancient books that was written in different languages that even if we did have access to it, we wouldn't be able to translate it because we don't speak the language, we don't read the language. So we could be looking at a ancient book of the dead and still can't read it because it would be in a language that we don't understand. So that's why we have the modern day literature. But the Bible definitely was retranslated and was under different names. The Book of Eli, just different texts that was written in ancient script that we wouldn't be able to read, even if it popped up out the dirt somewhere. It still wouldn't do us any good because we wouldn't be able to read it. And there is nobody living. I won't say nobody living, but it'd be very, very difficult to find somebody living that would be able to read it and interpret it. So the Quran of Mecca is another book of interest, that should be read and deciphered as well. You got the New Testament, you got the Old Testament. All of our history is there. You get into a lot of our history is incorporated and embedded in Hindu literature, Hindu books, also in the Torah. But again, they're going to go by names that they named after different gods and characters and their language and the different zones that they might have been in, time zones that they were in. So we're reading stuff that we don't recognize that is us, but they're just coded into different names, different languages, and we disconnect from it. But this is why in the Moorish Science Temple, we teach is only one God and one religion. Because understanding that, we will know that everybody might make reference to their God by a different name, but the truth of the matter is there's only one God, as a supreme being, that is. And we all are gods and goddesses, but far as from a metaphysical, spiritual perspective, there's only one God. And the names that we call on these gods will be different according to the language that we speak, the time period that we exist in, and the land that we come from. So everybody is making reference to the same God. They just calling them by different names. And as for religion, it's the same thing. There's only true one religion. Now, we refer to our religion as Islamism or the Mohammedan religion, or some might refer to it as the Muslim religion. But it's still the same religion, because Islam just represents or means peace. So what we're saying is the religion of peace. Now, everybody's religion will have a definition, but if their religion is not rooted in the practice of peace, then it's truly not a true religion. So we get caught up in these names and what other people have practiced and taught us to practice from a pseudo-religious perspective, but that's not true religion. So a true adept would only speak in reference to one religion. When you start hearing all these different terms in religion, we just say, no, it's only one religion. We're talking about different names. Same thing with the scriptures. It's all speaking in reference to the same people, just different names, different languages. Islam.
Islam. How you looking, more?
Islam, what you got for me? Got more questions?
I think there's one more.
All right.
The terms on Native American, Indian, etc. Are these more political words than nationalities?
Good question. So again, once we know law, we study law and study nationality as a concept and topic, right? It doesn't really matter what nationality we study, but once we understand what nationality really represents from an international perspective, we start to see and know what it takes to constitute a nationality. So in order to have a nationality, you got to have a nation. In order to have a nation, you have to have people, and you have to have a landmass that those people are claiming dominionship or jurisdiction over, for starters. And there's other things that constitutes a nation, like standards and things, but just from the most important part, we stick to that. So, and national name is another important concept for that. So when you say the term Indian, soon as we hear that term, we also need to understand etymology, right? Because that will help us understand truth and how something should be interpreted as well. So the word Indian is a compound word. The root of that word is India, right? You also have the term Indian, in India or indigo, which are different variations of the term. But there's a land in that term, Indian. So this
there's some feedback going on. Some static, I mean.
All right.
Hold on.
I'm just gonna tune in.
Yeah. All right, go again. Try again there, Nature.
All right, Islam. So Indian, like I said, let's go to etymology. We have the term India, which India will denote to a landmass, right? India is a nation. The people that live in that nation, nationality will be the same as the name of the land, where you would get the nationality or the nation state referred to as India. That's how nationality works. So when you have a nationality, you have a nation, and the name of the land must be the same as the national name of the people. The national name is also synonymous with the word nationality. That's where you get the word nationality from. Nationality just means nation. So when you say nation, you're talking about land, nation, or nation state, or some might refer to as country. So India will be, or Indian will be properly, according to international law, will be first India, which its proper name in earlier times will be Hindustan. But now they're referring to the nation as India. So then you have other lands that might be referred to as India or Indian, like what you would hear the term West Indian. A person or people refer to themselves as West Indian. Now you get in different coordinations to a nation state, which will be a whole different landmass and a whole different group of people. Still not necessarily nation states, but there are other designations of people that designate different landmass. So when they refer to as the term Native American and say that here in America, they say that the Native Americans were referred to as Indians, then according to national and international law, that would be indicating that the people from India, which are the Hindustanis, right, the original ones, are the true Native Americans according to how nationality operates. But that's not the case. So the people that they're referring to as Indian is just a misnomer again. That was a name put upon those people. I don't want to say those people like they're still, like I'm agreeing that they're Native Americans. What I'm saying is they're amalgamated people. The Native Americans is a compilation of several different people. It's a different history of the land dealing with before and after. So there's a before when the land was connected, when it was one land and the land was still referred to as one of the nation states of North Africa, or what we call one of the Barbary land masses along that occupy one of the Barbary coastal lines or nation states of the Barbary coast. All right, so this is where we get the present northwest territories that we refer to as Morocco, Tunis, Tripoli, etc. Right? We're descendants of Moroccans, but Moroccan Empire occupied this whole landmass before the land was divided and even after the land was divided on both sides. This is why truly, from a de jure perspective, Moroccan still is the correct name of this land. If you're dealing with it before, you want to talk about the earthquake, the continental drift, or whatever perspective you want to come from when the land was referred to as Pangaea, any of that. It was still Moroccan was the true designation of the land, although there might have been different sections or lands or nation states broken up in the Northwest Territory. We were under the jurisdiction or the empire of Morocco at the time, where the empire represents a more broader scope of different nation states that come under the empire. All right, but this is why you have what you call today the Kingdom of Morocco, which that is a small, I'm saying small just to give you an idea. It's a country. It's a portion of Morocco that formed a country that sits east of us across the Atlantis into a portion of Northwest Amexem, which they call today Africa. So just giving you a background that the Native Americans would truly be Moroccans in true history. It would be anyone that was under the Moroccan Empire, any of the nation states that occupied or sit along the northwestern portion of Africa or Amexem would truly be Native Americans. The term Native American is a corporate term. We didn't call ourselves Native America. Remember this, our flag was flying over here on this landmass from 1774 back to over 50,000 years of record, according to records. So the Moroccan Empire ruled and had dominion over this land for the longest reign or period of time of any human beings on this landmass, or across Earth for that matters. So when we talk about American, it's just a present day or modern day designation of name that we're using because that's what the people are using now. So to fit into the construct of that, we are agreeing to be Moorish American as the prophet's instructions. However, prior to 1774, there were several different names that was used according or over time. But we as a people prior to 1774, prior to slavery, prior to the colonization, we did not refer to ourselves as Native Americans or Indians. Those were names that were agreed upon during the colonization period. And then reservations was given to people who agreed to certain names and to agree to take certain agreements and treaties that was made with certain people, and they agreed to these terms. Some were amalgamated people, some were descendants of Aztecs, Mayans, and different Oriental people, and just amalgamated people who mixed in with dark melanated people, Moroccans, people from the African continent, and whatever else that you had on this land. You know, the land had different nationalities, just like it does now on this land prior to 1774. But the difference is, regardless of who they were and how many people were here, they were under the dominion and jurisdiction of the Moroccan Empire prior to 1774. So we went from the Moroccan Empire to blackamoors and Negro blacks and coloreds after that. Which none of those were nation states. None of those were nations. None of those was national beings. So that's why they gave us those names, because that diluted to slavery. When they came and colonized this land, they took the natives, which were us and our ancestors, our foreparents. They colonized them, forced them into Christianity, forced them to take certain land that they agreed to give them to stay in a certain landmass on a compound in a certain jurisdiction or territory, that they agreed to stay there, and they agreed to different occupational names like Indian, Cherokee, Blackfoot, etc. And they put in a constitution that the Indians would not be taxed. And this is one of the reasons why for the past couple hundred years, we have a lot of people who have tried to connect and agree to the Indian, the so-called Indian or Native American language or terminology that the colonists gave us, because it seemed to have a benefit under there. So they try to connect back to some Indian, so-called Indian tribe that you know, that they can connect with. Maybe some of them were connected to directly to some of these reservations and things. So they try to connect back to part of their family, which could be true in fact, that some people's parents and ancestors were on reservations. And some of their reservation names was Cherokee, Blackfoot, Lenape, etc. And those were occupational names that they were using at that time, but they're not origin, de jure, ancient, or allodial to the fact of something that we should continue to agree to. Our job is to correct the history and not to continue and perpetrate colonization or names that delude to slavery. Islam.
Islam. It's flying through the chat. Islam more. We'll definitely have to get a part 2 in.
Islam.
But let's see if there was anything else in the email. Islam or give thanks. Do you have any closing remarks?
Islam. In lieu of, you know, once we study and we become conscious, we start to give back thought patterns, you know, concepts, names, and things that we were accustomed to, which we should. You know, holidays is one of the biggest things we start to give back once we start knowing the truth and the origin of a lot of the holidays and the events, because we know they're rooted in rituals and things of that nature, but just in lieu of what they refer to as this Black History Month. You know, although that we don't subscribe to the term Black, and we know that this is definitely not our history, I just want to encourage our brothers and sisters that during these so-called holidays, these events, these time periods that they consecrate and set aside for certain things, even though they might be rooted in fiction and false, it becomes a reality for others. And like I said, this whole movement is not really for ourselves. It's for us, plural, as one, as a people. So it means nothing if you understand and you're smart and you feel like you're perfected, you know, which none of us are or should be. It's just that no man lives unto himself. We all bound by cords to one another. So with that being said, is that most of our people still out there, just unconscious. You know, they subscribe to these events, these holidays, these rituals. So, you know, this is the time during this Black history where they feel important. They feel it's important to do certain things that relates to our people and our ancestors. And they think that they're giving honor to our ancestors by taking time out their schedule and doing, whether it's charity, history lessons, social media, whatever they think is important to go hard and do extra during this month, because it's, again, a time given to us by our colonial possessors, right? By the colonists, by the ones who enslaved us. They gave us a month out the year, which is the shortest month of the year, right? They gave us this month and said, hey, listen, y'all do you, right? So to speak. So we do this all year round, conscious Moors. But I will say it's necessary to go hard as well during this month, because you got a vortex of spirits that's actually out there going to and fro during this time period. And we need to counter those spirits. So therefore, the Moors who are conscious, to have the know, to have the knowledge, to have the science to correct it and deal with this on a spiritual realm, we have to do more things and be more visible to the public, and do things as well in lieu of this so-called consecrated month of Black history, just like we do anytime during the other holidays, right? So we don't just not participate, because back to the term earlier, I use acquiescence. We don't want to acquiesce to rituals they're doing, because their rituals and spiritual practices can weigh in on the universe. It can weigh in on a society. It can weigh in on a group of people, and can start to latch and take hold on us, and can counter what we doing on a positive level. So we need to do more things to counteract what they're doing. They've been doing this way before we started understanding that act of war was put against us. So they already got the upper hand on the spiritual rituals that they've been doing. So any chance we get, take some time out your schedule, do daily posts. You know, you could copy and paste posts. You can write whatever you need to do. Just make sure we just try to counteract the evil spirits that's moving out there during this time period, and hurry. Hopefully it will encourage us to keep that momentum going outside of February and what they call Black History Month. Islam Black History Month, you know, let's correct it and do something from Moorish history perspective. Put that Moorish history out there on a collective scale, and let's start to correct this so that we can, you know, receive a divine rights like the Prophet told us.
Islam, more. Always a great build. Honors to you.
Islam.
Honors, supreme honors to all the Moors in the chat. Oh, honors to Sheikh Nika Bey as well.
Islam.
And our boys supposed to be going to the finals tomorrow at the school, the senior team tomorrow.
Islam.
So I know you had your boys' session to go to. So I hope they beat up on some people tonight.
Islam and much support and energy to those Moors as well, to our youth and everybody else in the Mo. I know we touched basically up on the sisters earlier. The sister had a question. We need to do some more meetings on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
You get into what the sisters need to be doing from a sisters auxiliary perspective.
Right.
Because that's definitely, more needed than anything. And I mean, that I've been demonstrating them degrees out in Canaanland for the longest, but the prophet is holding up that physical form of the Moabites or the woman. So
Mm-hmm.
that's for a reason, so we need that support, and we can't do it without the other polarity to us. So Islam, we need to do some stuff for so-called Black History Month as well, and teach the little ones. Get your house in order. Islam.
Honors to all the Moors worldwide. Again, honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali, the mastermind for all he did. Honors again, Grand Sheet Nature. We'll be in touch.
Islam, honors to you all. Islam, love y'all Moors.
Peace. Islam, Moors.
Amen. Peace.